Hello, my name is Michael Bro. Today on this video we're going to be talking about the offer. When I started in the business in 1976, this is what an offer looked like. That's it. That's it, the whole thing. It was nothing more than a half sheet of paper. These were supplied to us by the escrow companies, and that was it. Now today, 33 years later, 34 years later actually, it's gone from this to this, okay? Whole mountains of paperwork, and this is just to start a transaction. So as you can see, the industry has changed quite a bit and the paperwork has become overwhelming. In today's video, I would like to take some of the confusion out and give you some clarification as to what the process is. And as I said, it starts with the offer. It's also called the deposit receipt, the purchase agreement. There's several different names for it. What it actually is, it's the contract that binds a seller and a buyer in the terms under which they want to make the purchase of a property. This is called price and terms. Anytime you make an offer, you're submitting the price and the terms under which you'd like to purchase that property to a seller. The seller has a choice to either accept that offer that you've written or reject the offer. There's no middle ground. Now, I know you may be thinking, you may have heard, well, what about a counter offer? Well, if a seller writes a counter offer to your offer, he is actually rejecting your offer and saying, this is what I want in lieu of what you offered me. So in other words, I'll take your offer provided you take my offer back of this, which is a counter offer. Should you accept that counter offer, then you guys have a deal, you have a meeting of the mind, then you go to escrow. Okay? In the offer, it talks about there's different parts. This has become so complex that these are done by the California Association of Realtors. And what it is you check the boxes as you go through this contract that apply. If it doesn't apply, then you do not check them. However, I'm going to shrink it down to some basics because we could spend hours and hours and hours just talking about the deposit receipt, offer, purchase contract alone. So we've already covered price and terms. In this contract, you can ask for termite work, corrective work. That's something that's not required by law. Some lenders may require it, some lenders may not require it. Okay? And if you as a buyer want the termite work, you have to request that. Okay? And therefore there's a part for that. There's also what's called disclosures. Disclosures do not necessarily predict or spell out price and terms. However, disclosures are for the protection of the buyer and the seller, all who are involved, such as you have disclosures about lead-based paint, natural hazard, earthquake, home inspection is not a disclosure, it's something else. But let's just talk about these three for a minute: lead-based paint, natural hazard, and earthquake. Well, we all live in California. We know that there's earthquakes, and so the state has decided to bring up consumer awareness by printing up information called disclosures, which we give to buyers and sellers who are consumers to raise their conscious awareness of earthquakes, who to go to, what happens when a house has crippled walls and it falls, and this and that, and it's good for consumer protection. The lead-based paint one is kind of interesting because at one point in time, a lot of children were being taken to the hospital because they had ingested poison. And in order to find out what that poison was, they had to run tests. And while they're running the tests, the seriousness of that poison is getting worse and worse. So after many instances, they found out that babies would chew on the windowsills or pieces of the house, kids getting everything, and they had paint that had lead in it, and so they would consume that and it would it would have a bad effect on the children. So in order to cut the response time or turnaround time down, they've made people aware of lead-based paint, and actually it's been banned. It's no more lead-based paint. But to make someone aware of it, you know, they can say, well, here's my child, he's sick or she's sick, there's something wrong, and I noticed that they were chewing on the windowsill, and the doctor says, oh, let's test for lead-based paint, cutting down the diagnostic time so they can take care of the child. So that's a good thing. Now also home inspections, you're not required by law to do one, or you don't have to, you know, it's your choice. Home inspections are done by a third disinterested party who is a licensed home inspection company. You cannot have someone who is a friend who's in construction or a friend who works for City Hall, because then a seller could easily say, well, that's not a disinterested party, that's a friend of yours. So therefore that's why they have to be done by a third disinterested party. And also they're not to be used for negotiating or changing a price. However, with that said, when you purchase a property, you write that offer, you have no way of knowing if the plumbing, heating, or electrical is in good or bad condition. You're making your purchase assuming that they are, and the home inspection is to confirm that they are. Now, as a result of a home inspection, if you have problems with plumbing, heating, and electrical, it's going to cost, let's say, $10,000 on a $100,000 purchase. Hey, that's a lot of money. That's 10%. So if something like that should arise, you have basically 4 things that you can do. Okay. Excuse me. Number 1, the seller could make all the corrections. Number 2, the seller could give you a credit of the $10,000. Number 3, the seller could cut the price, overall sales price, from $100,000 down to $90,000. Or number 4, the seller does nothing at all, and you can still either purchase the property or you pass. You don't buy the property. And you know, in some cases it's a good thing. I mean, if you bought a property that should be selling for $150,000 and needs $10,000 worth of work in order to bring it up to snuff like every other house in the neighborhood, then you may not want to throw a deal away for $10,000 when you're already $50,000 under market value. And so with that said, that's why all contracts, real estate contracts, are different. No two are exactly alike. The one disclosure that's really important, and it's a very good one, and I think it's actually the most important, it's called a TDS 14, or otherwise known as a transfer disclosure statement from the seller. Okay, now this is not a warranty on the part of the seller. However, if there's anything wrong with the property that you're unaware of, you want that seller to put everything on there. Okay, whether it be a plumbing issue, roof issue, water heater's bad, leaky faucet, cracks, what caused them? Is it from earthquake, or is it settling cracks, or is it just natural cracks? You know, because you have some houses built in the 50s, all of them, you have a long span of plaster in the living room, and if you notice, you'll see that a lot of them are cracked, and that's normal. And if you repair it, give it time, it's going to crack again. But if you go in a house and you see a crack, and it's starting from the bottom all the way up, and it's maybe this wide on the bottom and this wide on the this wide on the top, going like this, you got a big problem. Okay, and that's why transfer disclosure, well, you can see that, but transfer disclosure statements for the seller to put everything he knows about that property on there. Now, in the event there's something that the seller does not put on the transfer disclosure statement, and you have a professional come in and he says it's going to cost X amount of dollars to fix it, and you ask that professional, well, is there any way the seller could have known about this? And he says, no, they had to know, because it's called a pre-existing condition, meaning it was there for a long time. And he puts it in writing. Guess what? The seller didn't disclose that to you, even though this isn't a warranty. But the fact that he did not disclose that to you means he can be liable for that. He's trying to hide something. And the whole purpose of this is you don't want to hide anything, because it could be detrimental to you in the future as a buyer.